Hey guys, this is AI Gaming 1776 playing Grand Theft Auto 5 with a 4 GB MSI Gaming R9 380. Now I plan on doing a few things with this video. I'm going to show you how the game performs. I have some monitoring software in the upper right hand corner. You can see the GPU temperature, you can see the GPU speed, you can see CPU temperatures, CPU usage, system RAM usage, VRAM usage, frame rate. All of that is in the upper right hand corner. So I plan on showing you how the game performs, how it looks. I also want to show you the best settings that I found for using this card and getting good frame rates. And I want to show you how the game performs in different areas. Okay, it's going to perform really well in this area. All right, anything within the city performs really well, but once you get out into the woods, once you get out into the desert, things don't look as good. Not that they don't look as good, they don't perform as well. The frame rate is not as good. So I'm going to show you that. It should still be pretty close to 60 frames per second though in that area. Right now we're probably doing much better than 60. I'll turn VSync off in a moment and show you that. I also might, if I get a chance to, talk to you about some of the differences between Nvidia and AMD, because there definitely are some differences at this price point. I paid about $240 for this card because this is the 4 GB version. It is the gaming version, but to be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed. See, when we discuss how computer games play, when we discuss PC gaming, we often talk about the frame rate. That's all we care about. How much does the graphics card cost? What settings can I turn on? And what kind of frame rate can I get? Well, as far as how much the card costs and what the frame rate is, it's pretty competitive with the GTX 960. However, there are differences in image quality between this and the 960. Some are in the favor of the this AMD card. Some are in the favor of Nvidia. So I'm going to want to talk about that. Maybe since I already opened that can of worms, I can get talking about that now. Here, let me turn off VSync to show you what the frame rate looks like. So go to graphics, turn VSync off, and I'll come back and show you the settings. First, I want you guys to really soak in how well the game plays. All right, see, we're in the 70s and 80s for the most part. It will dip maybe into the 50s and 60s from the 70s and 80s, which is perfectly fine. You know, you go power sliding around a corner or something, and that's going to affect it. To be honest with you, I'd have to double check. I've not used my Nvidia 960 in a while. I've not done that in a while, but I would almost say that with these same settings, this might be a higher frame rate. But they might not be the same settings. I think I've started using lower settings in recent times. So it may not be apples to apples on the settings, but this is good. I mean, it's staying in the 70s. It flirted with 69 for a moment. Let's power slide around this corner. Yeah, I just went down to 69, 64. Still, I mean, when you dip down to 64, you're doing pretty well. So, and please forgive me, I've got a sinus infection coming on, so there will be a little bit of throat clearing. All right, so let's talk about, I'm going to do this in backwards order. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the differences between Nvidia and AMD, since I already kind of poked my head into that can of worms. All right. The issue is the frame rate is just fine on this card. The colors are just fine. The image overall is pretty good, but it's a little more shimmery than what the 960 offers. The 960 offers a perfectly clear, perfectly stable, perfectly lovely image, whereas the R9 380, there's a certain amount of shimmer to objects, especially in the distance, even when you use anti-aliasing. Let me see. Yeah, FXAA is on. Here's the thing. Let me turn that off. Let me turn VSync back on. We're going to get somewhat of a nicer picture if we use VSync. So let's go back to VSync. Turn that on. No, turn that on. Sometimes the menu does not change as you push the button. All right, we should be good now. FXA off, VSync on. All right. See, the image is immediately more contrasty. It pops better. So here's the thing with the R9 380. This is overall okay. If I absolutely had to play the game this way, I guess I would. If I didn't know any better, if I hadn't used a GTX 960, I probably wouldn't complain about this too much. But there is something just ever so slightly janky about the image. All right. Now, granted, I'm not using any AA at all, but even when you do use AA, and I'll turn it back on here in a second, even when you do use AA, it's janky. Here, let me turn on MSAA, because the thing is, you saw we were getting 70, 80 frames per second. The thing is, we really actually can run MSAA times 2. So there is a part of me that thinks the frame rate might be higher with this 380 than what I was getting with the 960, but it's highly possible too that the 960 I might have had a couple of settings turned up, like maybe I had reflections on ultra or something with the 960, and that would affect frame rate. I'll have to go back and double check. Either way, frame rate wise, nothing to complain about. So let's talk about something that goes in AMD's favor, because I said some things do. The colors. I love how colors look on AMD cards. Now, I've used several Nvidia cards, and I've used Nvidia cards from different vendors. I've even used reference cards, the ones that say Nvidia on the box. Now, who really makes it? I'm not sure. I mean, there's some that you can buy in the store that actually just say Nvidia on the box, like they made it. Granted, I know you can buy reference style cards made by Gigabyte and EVGA and so on, but wow, we just went into the 40s. I think I've used actual Nvidia reference cards. Point being, for the most part, Nvidia seems to have not as bold of colors as AMD does out of the box. Now, maybe that's something you can go into your control panel and tinker with, but out of the box, first impressions, I really like the colors when you use Nvidia cards for what that's worth, and that's no small thing. All right, that's part of the experience. See, everyone focuses on frame rate, but there's more to the discussion than frame rate. So anyway, this looks pretty good. When you saw the game, oh, I want that car. When you saw the game go down to 44 frames per second and now it's in the 40s, just so you know, I'm almost certain that's only happening because I'm on a 60 hertz monitor right now. If you're going to play on a 60 hertz monitor, which it's very likely that you might, then if you're using VSync, here I'll turn VSync off. If you're using VSync and you have the graphics on, and I'll show you those settings soon, plus MSAA, if you have those settings on that I had on here, then you might go into the 40s. Now the thing is, when I play on my 144 hertz monitor, I don't have that issue. All right. The problem is when I try to show you guys footage from a game, I cannot capture 144 hertz footage yet. Nor does YouTube have a 144 hertz playback, but you get the idea. So unfortunately, I'm kind of capped at 60 frames per second when I give you guys screen footage like this. Now I can use a camcorder, which I have in the past, that will show. I can put a camcorder in front of the monitor, in front of a 144 hertz monitor, and I can show you how the game performs. And when I do that, you would see that this does not go into the 40s. At least it hasn't for me so far. It'll go down maybe into the 50s. Even with MSAA on, if you're playing on a high refresh rate monitor, you should still get around 50 to 60 to 70 frames per second depending on where you are. Alright, so as I drive very badly here, I'm about to load a different save file. And in that save file, I'll be able to show you where the frame rate does suffer. Alright, remember, we've been driving around. Did I turn MSAA off? Yeah, I did. I did turn it off. Oh, I meant to turn VSync off is what I meant to do. So let me do that. Bear with me, guys. It's been a long week. All right, so VSync off, MSAA on. Let's see that frame rate real quick. Then we'll move ahead. And it's kind of putting up a fight here. See what I mean? The the options sometimes in this game don't want to listen to you. All right, see, there we are. We're in the 50s right now. MSAA times 2. And it does stay in the 50s a lot with MSAA. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not like you're going to keep 60 frames per second. So that is something to think about. Let me go around a corner. I can't see the corners because I'm going up a hill. 45. Went down to 45 anyway. I will have to try this on my high refresh rate monitor again, and I'll let you guys know if it goes into the 40s. I'll put that in the description box because we were very firmly in the 40s just a second ago. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn MSAA off. Where it at? Go here. Off. All right. Oh, by the way, advanced graphics. I have extended distance scaling on and extended shadow distance. Extended distance scaling is 4 clicks. Should be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then extended shadows distance is 2 clicks. All right, so keep that in mind when I show you the graphics. All right, so let's go. I believe I want to go here. Yeah, right here. But I got a blimp save too. I got a blimp save. I think you guys are going to like that one. I'll show you that one in a minute. Well, we're going to do this one first. This is, we're going to go to the gun store out by where Trevor lives. Sorry if this is a spoiler alert for you. And remember, with no MSA on, and with no VSync on, in the city, we were getting in the 70s and 80s. Notice that we're getting in the 50s right now. So this area right here is a really good area to go test your settings out, because for whatever reason this area hammers your frame rate. Okay, see, it's still at 70. So if you're playing on a high refresh rate monitor, keep in mind you can use VSync. I don't care what anyone tells you. I do it every day, so I know what I'm talking about. You can use VSync on your 144 hertz monitor, and you're going to get a higher frame rate than 60. So even when you're out here and see how it's 70, well, now it's like 86. See that? You're going to get the 86 even with VSync on. You see what I mean? A lot of people like to say, oh, well, VSync is going to hard lock you at 30 and 60, and no, that's not how it works. The only reason why it kind of hard locks you at 60 on a 60 hertz monitor is because 60 hertz is just as fast as the monitor goes. So as you can see, we can go through this area, we can hit things, we can tumble the car over, and we're still getting 60 frames per second. And it will go into the 50s here. This is no MSAA though. Keep that in mind. So if you want it to play around 60 frames per second when you get out to this area, which the game is going to make you come out to this area if you follow the story, then what you're going to want to do is turn MSAA off. Okay, so I've made you wait a while. Let me show you the settings. I make you wait on purpose. I just wanted to give you context. You see what I mean? Like, I wanted to say, hey, it's kind of like that House Hunter show where, or actually it's more like Love It or List It. The way they do it, they show you what you're getting and then they tell you how much it costs. So I was showing you the performance, and now I'm going to show you the settings. It's probably a bad analogy. Like I said, it's been a long day. All right, so again, advanced graphics. We have 4 clicks for extended distance scaling. That helps with pop-in. And then we have 2 clicks with extended shadows distance, which also helps with pop-in. All right, graphics, 1080p, 60 hertz. Right now we have no anti-aliasing on. You can use any of these. FXAA doesn't really hit the frame rate at all. It might take a couple points off, but I don't really notice it. MSAA does hit the frame rate pretty hard. VSync is currently off. I would normally play with it on unless I had a G-Sync monitor or a FreeSync monitor, which I do, but this is not one. And even if I did, when I record my footage, I can't use the VSync and FreeSync anyway. All right, so population density, population variety, and distance scaling. They only have 1 click down from each of those. I probably could have turned those up, But for some reason, there is something about the one click down in each of those that almost always guarantees me I'm going to be around 60 frames per second when I'm using a mid-grade card like this. This applies to the 960 too. All right, so texture quality, very high. Shader quality, very high. Shadow quality, very high. Reflection quality, very high. Reflection MSAA times 2. Water quality, high. Particles quality, very high. Grass quality, high. You can go higher than high if you want to, but do that at your own risk. Soft shadows, high. Wait a minute, no, grass, high. Soft shadows, softer. Post effects, very high. Motion blur is off. In-game depth of field effects on. Anisotropic filtering is 16. Ambient occlusion is high. Tessellation is very high. And again, we do have the advanced settings on. So let me show you a more fun save that I... Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this save might work. Sometimes I get confused on my save files, but I think this is going to be the one that you're going to like. Although when it loads, it does something kind of funny. There we go. It's not quite how... Oh, yeah, I was on the tennis court. Yeah, when I saved this, I actually saved it on the tennis court. That's Michael's house. Again, if you've played this game before, you would recognize Michael's house. So here's what I'm going to do to wrap up. First of all, I'm trying to land on Michael's house, and it's just not happening. Why? I don't know. This blimp is very difficult to control. Look at that, 82 frames per second. Here, I'm turning VSync back on, and I'm going to turn MSAA back on. All right. And yes, I want yes. All right. Wow, 45 frames per second. You know what? I'll leave it on. I'll leave it on. It would be higher, obviously, with MSAA turned off. I don't know why I'm obsessed with landing the blimp in certain spots, but I kind of am. So let me focus on that and wrap this video up and tell you what I think about playing this game with the 380. Overall, if you have to use the 380 to play this game, you will get a satisfactory frame rate. Let me turn off MSAA because that 45 frames per second kind of undermines that. I'll turn on FXAA though. FXAA washes stuff out a little bit and makes it fuzzy, which I'm not a fan of. Look at that. Up to 60 frames per second right now, where we were just at 45, all by turning off MSAA. Like I said, MSAA hits your frame rate, man. All right, come on, land on the house. Land. I want to see, the reason I want to land on the house is I want to get out of the blimp. I want to get out of the blimp and walk around on Michael's rooftop. Is that too much to ask? This is harder than it looks, guys. I know it seems like I am a monkey fornicating with a football at the moment, but this matters to me. I might have ADD. Longtime viewers of my channel know that I probably, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I'm just going to fly. But longtime viewers of this channel know that I probably have ADD. So anyway, if you absolutely have to play the game with this card, you can. It's not too terrible. As a matter of fact, if I land this blimp and get in a car and drive, FXAA does help with the jankiness a little bit, but I really hate FXAA. To me, it makes some of the textures lose their sharpness. All right, I was trying to land behind where the blimp is. That wasn't happening, so I'm just going to land here now. And yeah, that's pretty baller. That is pretty baller right there. All right, as you can see, FXAA is on. The frame rate is just fine. What I'm going to do is I am actually... Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to take the Viper. I'm going to take the faux Viper. Give me your car, buddy. All right, so I'm going to take the faux Viper. FXAA does actually cancel out some of the aforementioned jankiness that I complained about. So that should be considered, although there's still some jankiness there. There just is. There's shimmering. I wish you could see me point at the screen. there's an intersection straight ahead with a stoplight. And as I drive and move the car back and forth, it shimmers and it drives me crazy. Now, this is an AMD thing, and I've noticed it with some other cards, some other AMD cards playing other games also. I notice it more prominently with the 380, and this is something that I had been meaning to talk about in the video, and I kept forgetting as I ADD meander through this video. And again, thanks for putting up with me as I do this. All right, so here's the issue. I think part of the reason why there's this janky shimmering is it's an old card. The R9 380, if I'm remembering correctly, is some pretty old architecture. You know, I don't know when. Oh, wait a minute. I think Tom's Hardware, if I remember correctly, I read an article saying that it might have been 2012 or 2013 when this architecture was introduced. See, this is the downside to what AMD does. Now listen to me. I have AMD cards and I have Nvidia cards. I have a 27-inch FreeSync monitor for AMD that I love. Okay? So this is not fanboy bias stuff. This is me giving you an honest observation. There is a downside to what AMD's been doing. AMD has been doing rebadges, basically. Yeah, they tinker with some stuff with the 300 series. And I know some of the big YouTubers really, really defended AMD and said, oh, it's not a rebadge. It's a refresh because X, Y, and Z was done. Okay, fine. But this is an old card to refresh. And I think that's why there's so much jankiness. When this card was new, when this architecture was new, games weren't necessarily as complicated as this. Of course, you could make the argument that, hey, Grand Theft Auto is a 2013 game, so technically the game is not that much newer than this card, and I'll give you that. But Grand Theft Auto is also like a masterpiece of a game that came out in 2013, and that was on console. The PC version didn't come out till 2015 with all these features. You can argue either way is the point about like how new this game really is. You could almost argue that the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions of this game were like alphas or betas compared to what this game is today. I mean, it's gone through a lot, but you know, it's the same engine, and I'm meandering, and thanks for putting up with the meandering. I normally don't meander this badly in the games, but I'm telling you guys, it's been a long day. I haven't even had dinner yet. I'm trying to squeeze this in before dinner. Anyway, it's an old card. I'm pretty sure it's an old card. I'd have to double check. I could be wrong, but I think it's like a 2012, 2013 architecture. And I think that could be hurting it because it performs frame rate wise in the neighborhood of a GTX 960, maybe even better than a 960 at this game. Now, that's another thing about AMD versus Nvidia. In some games, Nvidia performs better. In some games, AMD performs better, which is its own can of worms. But overall, the R9 380 competes with the GTX 960, and it does a good job. It's not bad frame rate wise. The colors look good. Overall, it's a decent card. But there's some kind of shimmery jankiness that bugs me. Now, I'm the kind of guy, I can play games without anti-aliasing, is what I've learned. Because I'm so addicted to frame rate that I'll play without anti-aliasing in certain titles just to get that smooth frame rate. And this is one of them. When I play this game with Nvidia cards, I don't use AA at all. And here's the other thing. When I play this game right here, when I play this game with my R9 390X, I play it with no AA and it's fine. It's a little bit jaggier. It's a little bit jaggier than when I play with like a GTX 970 or 980 or something. But it's not as shimmery and janky, if that makes sense. So it's like whatever. You know, I can deal with it. Now, I will say this. I'm using HDMI on a 60 hertz monitor, and when I use DisplayPort on a 144 hertz monitor, there's less shimmering and there's less jankiness. It's still there, but it doesn't bother me nearly as much on my 144 hertz monitor. As a matter of fact, all around, it doesn't quite look as good via HDMI as it does via DisplayPort. But you could almost always say that with any graphics card in any game. DisplayPort is actually pretty decent. That, and I think I know my Nvidia cards have a HDMI 2.0. I know that, and I think the AMD cards are still rocking HDMI 1.3, 1.4, something like that. Not HDMI 2.0 is the point. So that could have something to do with it too. I'm not entirely sure, because this definitely looks better when I use DisplayPort. So, a lot of you probably only care watching this video, and this is one of the problems whenever I try to handle multiple things with one video. A lot of you probably only care about the frame rate, all right? And all this other yakking that I've done, you don't really care about so much, and I get that. And then a lot of you probably don't care about the jankiness and the shimmering and all that, and that's fine too. But what I wanted to do, because I've done a ton of Nvidia cards covering this game, I think this might be the very first AMD video I've done, so I had a lot on the topic that I wanted to say. So that's where all this is coming from, is I've compared both platforms pretty extensively. And to give you an idea of how extensively I try to really look at things, I've had the AMD cards now for almost 2 months, for at least a month and a half, and this is the first Grand Theft Auto 5 video that I've put up, and this is one of the first videos that I put up where I discuss in depth what I think the difference is between a 960 and a 380. I gave it a month and a half at least of using AMD every day, and then switching back and forth, back to back to back to back, and really looking at it. So hopefully this video is worthwhile to you guys. Hopefully you appreciate the perspective of somebody who has put this much time into checking out both platforms. Because to be honest with you, I always felt like a lot of the YouTube videos that I would check out trying to discuss these things weren't deep enough. You know what I mean? So I reached a point where I started buying all these graphics cards myself, which is not a cheap thing to do, if I'm to be completely honest. And I started just going to town. Here, let me load up the desert area real quick. Let me load that back up. Yeah, just going to town for myself so I can see with my own eyes, okay, what really is the difference between AMD and Nvidia. There's so many differences. There's the jankiness issue with the 380. There's the color issue. Also, there's certain Nvidia games where VSync seems to kick their ass. And I've had some people tell me in the comments that this has kind of been a long-standing issue, where there's some games that just for whatever reason they're going to work better with Nvidia cards when VSync is used. See, most YouTubers, what they do is they turn VSync off and they give you the uncapped frame rate for benchmarks, but they don't talk to you about what happens when you turn VSync on. Now, admittedly, most of the time nothing happens. The vast majority of the time there's no problem at all, but sometimes there is. Fallout is one of those games, Fallout 4, and it's really weird. I'm going to make a video showing this. When you use an R9 390 or an R9 390X and you play in 1440p, Fallout 4 gets 20 frames per second on the Ultra preset. Now, if you uncap the frame rate, because in case you don't know, Fallout 4 has VSync automatically enabled. There is no toggle to turn it on and off in the settings. If you go and you disable that, then what happens is all of a sudden the 390 and 390X can play the game in Ultra at 1440p at almost 100 frames per second. But with VSync on, it's 20 frames per second. That's messed up. The Nvidia cards do not have that issue. So there are differences between AMD and Nvidia that I've been learning about, and my goal is to start talking to you guys about those things. So anyway, hopefully these videos have been helpful for you guys. Hopefully you've learned something, if nothing other than the 380 can play this game at decent frame rates and some good settings to use. And the fact that you can use some of the advanced settings, you can do that. You saw that I have the distance turned up for shadows and so on. So let me know in the comments some other games you want me to check out with the R9 380. And hopefully this video has been helpful for you. Please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. Please tell your friends. If you have friends that want to know how these cards perform and like thoroughly get a look at them and not just some quick little PowerPoint slide with an average frame per second number printed on it, then tell your friends. I give pretty thorough graphics card demonstrations. And check out my playlists. I have R9 380, R9 390, R9 390X, GTX 960, GTX 970, GTX 980 Ti, GTX 745. And with the 960, I actually have the 2GB and the 4GB cards. So I give pretty good in-depth videos, even without commentary, for all of these things. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Again, hopefully this has been helpful for you. This has been AI Gaming 1776, and you guys have yourselves an excellent day.